Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, November 13th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It's time to start worrying. That's the message delivered today from California's Health and Human Services Secretary about the surge in COVID-19 cases across the state. Here in San Diego County, 611 new cases and 3 deaths were reported. A reminder, purple tier restrictions take effect at midnight. Now, as KPBS reporter John Carroll tells us, California officials are taking new action to bring the surge under control.
As I say to my patients often, when I'm worried, I'll tell you so you can worry with me, and we're there.
Dr. Mark Galley began his media briefing Friday with absolutely no sugarcoating. San Diego's recent move into the purple, most restrictive COVID tier is emblematic of what's happening across the Golden State. The 14-day positivity rate has gone from 3 to 4% over the last 2 weeks. COVID hospitalizations have gone up 34.5% over the same period. ICU hospitalizations up nearly 37%.
That's exactly what we worry about in terms of overwhelming our hospital system, making sure that hospital system's available to take care of not just people who are sick with COVID, people who are sick with the flu.
And every other ailment people go to hospitals for. As we enter the holiday season, Galley says the state is very concerned about people traveling. California has joined Oregon and Washington in issuing a travel advisory, which asks people not to travel unless it's absolutely necessary. And all 3 states are asking travelers, whether you're visiting or coming back home, to quarantine for 14 days. Meantime, San Diego County has launched this interactive case rate map. It shows how cities and communities throughout the county are being impacted by the virus. Like the state's tier system, it relies on color coding. As you can see, most of the county is either in the purple or red tier, an indication the virus is spreading. You can find the map at sandiegocounty.gov. As the virus spreads, could we be looking at another statewide lockdown? Dr. Galley says that's not being considered right now, but he also says that could easily change.
This is a quickly, rapidly evolving situation, and we will do whatever it takes to make sure that we appropriately protect the public health of California.
To avoid another lockdown, Galley reminds everyone to wear masks, stay physically distant from anyone outside your household, wash your hands frequently, and if you haven't gotten your flu shot, he says, get it now. John Carroll, KPBS News.
By this time tomorrow, indoor operations are supposed to be shut down for restaurants, churches, and gyms because of COVID-19 restrictions. Some business owners say they can't survive another shutdown and plan to defy the order to close. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says others are just fed up with the state's tiered reopening system.
I can promise you that people are not going to be complying with this edict. And it's not just in El Cajon, it's going to be all over the county.
El Cajon Mayor Bill Wells says he's asked the El Cajon Police Department to make COVID-19 related calls a lower priority. He says he's not encouraging businesses to ignore state mandates, but he's standing with owners making the tough decision to do so.
They're not doing it because they're criminals. They're not doing it because they want to hurt anybody. They're doing it because they have no choice in their minds that if they do this, they're going to destroy their future and the future of their children. And I understand why they're doing what they're doing.
We've been through this for 8 months now, to where open, close, kind of open, then you kind of close down again, then you're kind of open, but on the inside you're not allowed to.
Marco Rodriguez is one of the owners of Eastbound Bar and Grill, which he opened 11 years ago with a couple of friends.
We were all born and raised in the small little town of Lakeside, even our football pictures up over here, so yeah, right there.
Rodriguez says the idea of closing his dining room again is not easy.
I need to start thinking about my staff. Like, I can't lay off another round of employees because I don't have work for them.
Eastbound has turned a parking lot into this outdoor patio, but
The financial side's not the best, not the easiest, but it's what we need to do to keep afloat and keep our staff is our priority right now to keep them working.
Rodriguez describes the last 8 months as a roller coaster ride, adapting to ever-changing restrictions. He's been putting in long hours at the restaurant and says he's doing it for the community.
There's no way we're closing our doors. There's no way that we're not going to stay here for not just our staff, but Lakeside. This is our town. This is what people want to come. They want to come eat and be with their friends and have some kind of social, I guess, normality of this 2020 year.
Rodriguez is hoping that the open-air layout of his restaurant will keep him from having to close. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
As COVID-19 vaccine trials continue, one local mayor is putting herself on the front lines. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne has the story.
National City Mayor Alejandra Sotelo Solis wants to be a part of the solution in combating COVID-19.
This morning, I will be joining a cohort of 2,000 individuals regionally and 60,000 nationally who have volunteered to find a vaccine for COVID-19.
This morning, to mark National Kindness Day, Sotelo Solis joined the UC San Diego Health and Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine clinical trial. She hopes that by receiving the vaccine today, it will ease the fears for her citizens.
Our National City community has been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. And by learning more about the vaccine, as I asked many of our constituents to do, signing up, going through my own health history, and now being cleared and eligible to participate.
We hope to get more of a representative population, so maybe higher Hispanic community than other sites.
Sotelo Solis will monitor her health and reactions following the vaccine and share her experience with health experts. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Today, San Diego State University encouraged all students taking in-person classes to avoid Thanksgiving travel. If students do leave, they're asked to follow public health orders at all times and get tested immediately upon return. Since the start of the fall semester, 1,364 cases have been connected to the university. 428 of those have been students living on campus. The fall coronavirus surge predicted by public health experts is well underway, with new daily U.S. cases topping 100,000 for 10 days in a row. As Karen Kaifa reports, that's prompted a return to restrictions similar to those imposed in the spring in many places across the country.
From New Jersey.
We were just preparing to open up our schools in Newark, but right now, as the cases are increasing, I don't think it's safe.
To Wisconsin.
What this is doing to our hospitals is we're all either full or very close to being full.
To California, which has now surpassed 1 million confirmed cases during the COVID-19 pandemic after Texas hit that mark earlier this week.
Now is the moment that we continue to keep that guard up, make sure we're doing the things that we know can help us bring these numbers down.
The fall surge raising critical concerns. In St. Louis, a dire outlook for hospitals in the coming weeks.
We have no reserves. We have no backup.
And in North Dakota, an additional struggle. Some people still dismissing the virus as a hoax.
Well, that's been an ongoing challenge for us here in local public health and across the entire state of North Dakota, is to get people to understand the severity.
President Donald Trump attended a closed briefing by the Operation Warp Speed vaccine team Friday.
We ask all Americans to remain vigilant, especially as the weather gets colder and it becomes more difficult to go outside.
President-elect Joe Biden's team preparing its takeover of the U.S. pandemic response in January.
The virus isn't distinguishing between red states and blue states. It is affecting us all collectively.
New daily U.S. COVID cases exceeded 150,000 for the first time on Thursday, per Johns Hopkins data. In Washington, Karen Kaifa, KPBS News.
Chalk up North Carolina to President Trump. After 10 days, the Tar Heel state officially goes to Mr. Trump. He picks up 15 electoral votes for a total of 232 to Joe Biden's 290. The only remaining state is Georgia, where a recount is underway. President Trump has still not conceded the race to President-elect Joe Biden. His lawyers, though, have reportedly dropped its lawsuit in Arizona. 56% of San Diego voters said yes to Measure E, which ends the city's 30-foot height limit on new buildings in the Midway district. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says change is coming to the neighborhood eventually.
Midway is full of vacant and underutilized lots ripe for redevelopment. The city rezoned much of the neighborhood in 2018 for high-density housing. And with more flexibility on height, Midway property owners might be enticed to build something new. But Kathy Kenton, who owns property in Midway and chairs the neighborhood's planning group, says it'll take some time for landowners to realize what all they can do.
To be honest with you, I don't think they've thought about a lot yet, because this has been kind of a pipe dream for a long time. So now it's really, okay, this is real. But nobody really knows what it means yet.
Midway also has multiple redevelopment projects in the works. The Navy is seeking to build new cybersecurity offices, plus housing and commercial space on its land near the I-5 freeway. And the city of San Diego is in talks to redevelop the Pechanga Arena property into a new stadium and entertainment district. Kenton says those could be a catalyst for revitalization in the rest of the neighborhood. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Drug overdoses and meth-related deaths are still rising despite a county-wide crackdown. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh has the latest findings from the county's meth strike force.
The number of deaths related to methamphetamine overdose continued to rise in 2019, and it's expected to be worse in 2020, says Holly Porter, one of the task force chairs.
Now we have the fall and winter holidays ahead of us, and we know that this will be a challenging time. This report card again has shown us 546 meth-related deaths in 2019, and that was pre-COVID. We know that these numbers are escalating.
In the first 9 months of 2020, meth-related deaths have risen 7%, she says. This despite officials talking about the record number of seizures. October 9th, Customs and Border Protection had the second highest seizure of meth in the agency's history. A medical supply truck stopped at the Otay Mesa point of entry.
The smugglers loaded the illegal drugs in with legitimate medical supplies. That shows the deceptiveness of the smugglers, even during this pandemic.
Local and federal law enforcement sees 8,000 pounds of meth in Southern California over the last 4 weeks. Still, more than half of all prisoners in the county jail test positive for meth, a 20-year high. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
While San Diego County slipped backward into the purple tier, Bay Area counties have moved to the less restrictive yellow and orange tiers in the system meant to control COVID-19 spread. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Trageser tells us the reasons why they come down to timing, politics, demographics, and public health histories.
On March 16th, San Francisco Mayor London Breed had a press conference. Her message that day shaped her city's future for months to come.
The new public health order that we're announcing will require San Franciscans to remain at home, with exceptions only for essential outings.
The Bay Area was the first region in the state to issue a stay-at-home order, with the rest of the state following 3 days later, says John Swartzberg, an infectious disease expert at UC Berkeley.
Although that number of days doesn't sound like a lot, given how fast the pandemic was spreading, it certainly helped a great deal.
San Francisco's initial response also set the tone for its stance on reopening. Elected officials, health officials, and residents all seem to understand the region would remain restrictive, says Erin Alday, the San Francisco Chronicle's health reporter.
Right from the start has been just really aggressive and really fast. So just, anytime there's sort of the hint of things moving in the wrong direction, they kind of respond to that and clamp down on it.
After 2 months with a statewide stay-at-home order, Governor Gavin Newsom started allowing counties to reopen businesses. Public health officials now largely view that as a mistake. The state began to see a surge in COVID-19 cases. Counties responded differently.
San Francisco did experience a summer surge, like every place in California. It never really blew up quite like it did in other places. And as soon as they sort of saw that happening, the city immediately halted its reopening, whereas many other counties kind of kept pushing, kept moving forward.
San Diego was one of those counties. Public health officials allowed restaurants to reopen at limited capacity in late May, then salons and barber shops a week later, then gyms, hotels, and bars 2 weeks after that. Supervisor Nathan Fletcher unsuccessfully advocated for a more restrained approach.
The minute we can possibly open things, we open things. They chose to be more cautious. And by doing that, they have not lived on the precipice of open close.
Alday says the San Francisco region has another asset, its history with public health. The city was the epicenter of the AIDS epidemic in the United States in the 1980s, which established a robust public health response. She says it also established a trust between the community and public health officials.
You just don't get any of that kind of like, I don't know, is this real? Do I trust what my leaders are saying?
Another possible reason San Francisco and Alameda counties have lower case counts is that inequality is more pronounced there than in San Diego County, says Rebecca Fielding Miller, an epidemiologist at UC San Diego.
So in some ways it comes back to housing prices, like most things do in San Diego. Like people who are residents in those large counties are people who can afford to live in those large counties, whereas their essential workforce is pushed off into other counties and has to commute in. At least across the county of San Diego, housing prices are diverse-ish enough that the frontline workers, the people who are really at the highest risk, also live in the same county.
Despite its demographics, there's plenty San Diego County can control, she says. The county could adopt a more gradual strategy of reopening and further boost its outreach efforts in the South Bay and other parts of the county that are being hit hardest by COVID-19. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
Hope you're having an excellent Friday, and thanks for staying with us here at KPBS News. I'm AccuWeather's Marvin Gomez, and temperatures are going to stay on the cool side as we head into your Saturday, especially along the coast and the valleys as well. Along the coast, we could have a little bit of fog, and of course, those gusty winds are going to be around as well across the deserts and into the mountains as well. Throughout most of our Saturday, things are going to turn a bit warmer for us into your Sunday. Here's a quick look at your AccuWeather forecast for tonight. In San Diego County, temperatures cooling down to 47 degrees across Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna at 41. Meanwhile, Chula Vista near 52 degrees. As we head into your Saturday, most of the Southwest dealing with those cooler temperatures, especially across Northern California. Of course, we're going to be on the cool side as well. The strong onshore flow bringing the cool breeze across Southern California. And here's a quick look at the numbers for the afternoon. 67 degrees the high across Oceanside, Ramona 74, Borrego Springs near 78 degrees. As we head into Sunday, the strong onshore flow, well, that's going to start weakening, gradually becoming more of an offshore flow across Southern California. High pressure starts building again, and conditions are going to be more seasonable. Here's a quick look at your extended forecast along the coast. 67 on Saturday. We're jumping back up to 73 on Sunday and 80 degrees into your Monday. A very similar pattern across inland areas, low 70s on Saturday, turning into the upper 80s for your Monday. Dry weather continues, of course, across our area. Just a couple of clouds for us across the mountains on Saturday. 59 degrees should be the day's high, 62 on Sunday, and mid-60s for Monday and Tuesdays. Across the deserts, we're starting at 78 on Saturday, and we're going to be jumping up to 80 degrees on Sunday, and eventually, of course, turning warmer into the middle of next week. Back to you.
Airlines are predicting a surge in Thanksgiving holiday travel despite the spike in COVID-19 cases we've seen across the country. American Airlines says it is boosting its flight schedule from around 3,500 flights per day up to 4,000 per day. United Airlines is also increasing capacity. The company anticipates Thanksgiving week will be its busiest since March. It's adding upwards of 1,400 domestic flights that week. Video games have seen a resurgence as people have stayed inside during the pandemic, and new Xbox and PlayStation consoles are arriving just in time for the holiday season. SDSU's Miro Kopik has more in the Friday Business Report.
Both Microsoft and Sony launched their new either Xbox or PlayStation 5 this week. So there are lines out of stores before everything shuts down with people buying these consoles. People have been shut in. They're not going out. Other forms of entertainment are much more limited. And so consumers spent a record $11.2 billion in the third quarter of 2020 on video games. That's a 24% increase over last year. A lot of new gamers are coming in, and you have friends, family groups that are playing together because it's a way to socialize. And to put it in context, the video game industry is bigger than the movie industry and the music industry combined. So this is going to be an interesting sector to watch to see how people continue to really engage in the video game space as an alternative to other forms of socialization and entertainment.
Students from both sides of the border are taking part in a diplomatic exercise using video games. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler tells us how video games are now being used to promote empathy.
Luel Mayan is a 25-year-old South Sudanese refugee who started his own video game company while still living in a refugee camp. Mayan will be a panelist at today's virtual event, co-hosted by the San Diego Diplomacy Council, talking about what made him want to pursue a career in game development.
What can I do to use my experiences as a kid, as a child, as somebody who has been in a refugee camp, as somebody who grew up who was born of the war, to be able to create something that is going to help people have a sustainable future. And that's why peace building is really very important.
He's seen personally how video games can bridge the distance between people with vastly different life experiences.
Video game are the thing that we can use to create awareness, to help people understand empathy.
Mayan has designed a game that helps players understand the challenges that refugees face, while also raising money to support those in refugee camps. As part of the event, high school students in the U.S. and Mexico will play the video game Among Us, where they'll have to work collaboratively to solve a mystery. Fabian Perlov is the executive director of the Diplomacy Council.
How digital diplomacy through or via video games, for example, can also help us reach a diverse audience.
She says with many young gamers stuck inside during the coronavirus, it's the perfect time to build lasting international relationships.
And we can promote diversity through video games and engage high school students from all backgrounds. And it's because they are engaged in our video games platforms and promote diplomacy, we can also, share their voice, share their experience. San Diego is about diversity.
The Diplomacy Council hopes to continue using video games to bring communities together, even after the pandemic lockdown is over. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
It's Friday the 13th, so celebrate with a horror comedy set on this very unlucky day. KPBS film critic Beth Accomando reviews Freaky, opening today at South Bay Drive-In.
That's me, Millie. Ordinary, boring Millie. Honestly, if this was a horror movie, I'd be one of the first ones to get killed.
Cue the creepy dude in the mask.
Remember Freaky Friday where a mom and a daughter swap bodies? Well, since it's 2020, a year that seems particularly cursed, things are going to be a little freakier.
I want my body back. Come and get it.
So now we have a serial killer and a teenage girl changing bodies.
Guys, he's here somewhere. He's wearing my body and he's wearing my face. He's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. And if we don't capture him first, God knows how many people he's gonna kill. Whoa. What am I wearing?
I'm actually really liking this for you.
Stop right there.
The chief joy of Freaky is Vince Vaughn as a bullied high school girl finding empowerment in the 6'5" body of a deranged murderer. Writer-director Christopher Landon isn't as clever in sending up genre tropes here as he was in Happy Death Day. But Freaky makes a diverting Friday the 13th treat, thanks to Vaughn's performance. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, more than 150,000 new COVID cases in a single day as the pandemic's troubling resurgence continues. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's a recap of our top stories. California is joining Oregon and Washington in issuing travel advisories, urging people entering the states or returning to self-quarantine. Governor Newsom's office announced the advisory urging against non-essential travel out of state in an attempt to slow the spread of coronavirus. Here in San Diego County, 611 new cases and 3 deaths were reported. And purple tier restrictions take effect at midnight. That means restaurants, churches, gyms, and museums must stop operating indoors. Some business owners say they cannot survive another shutdown and plan to defy the order to close. El Cajon Mayor Bill Wells says he stands with business owners making the decision to stay open against state mandates. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/Evening Edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.